What if I told you that by the end of 2026, Canada might not be an independent country anymore, but the 51st state of the United States? We are standing in mid-February 2026, and the Maple Leaf is currently under the most brutal economic siege in North American history. President Trump has just signaled that his 35% border invasion tariff is just the beginning, and for the first time, the word annexation is being whispered in the corridors of power in Ottawa. While you were sleeping, Canada's economy just lost $78 billion in projected GDP, and the country is literally praying for a miracle to stop the man in the White House from pulling the plug on their entire national identity. This isn't a trade war, it is an existential fight for survival, where the world's longest undefended border has become a financial kill zone. The shadows of American fighter jets are no longer just for patrol, they are a reminder that the Great North is now a target of the America First Empire. Hello friends, welcome to Geo Unseen YouTube channel. Today we break down why Canada is praying for Trump to stop and the secret plan to turn Canada into the 51st state. As of the 19th of February 2026, Canada is facing a total economic blackout. Under Trump's Maximum Pressure North campaign, the US has increased tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum to a staggering 50%, while a universal 25% tax on automobiles has effectively paralyzed the Ontario heartland. The reason? Trump is demanding a level of border security and immigration control that the Canadian government simply cannot afford. But there's a deeper, more terrifying layer to this 2026 crisis. Leaked memos from the Eurasia Group suggest that Trump's real goal isn't just trade concessions, it's the total resource integration of Canada's energy and minerals. By squeezing the Canadian dollar to its lowest point in history, hitting a record 0.62 cents against the USD, the US is making it impossible for Canada to function as a sovereign trade partner. The 2026 landscape for Canada is grim. Prime Minister Mark Carney, who recently took the reins after the collapse of the previous administration, has seen his $5 billion strategic response fund evaporate in just weeks as unemployment in the manufacturing sector hits a 20-year high. Trump has even publicly mused on Truth Social about taking over parts of the Western Hemisphere, specifically mentioning Canada's vast Arctic oil reserves and fresh water as a security necessity for the United States. This isn't just political rhetoric anymore. In late January 2026, the Trump administration officially terminated all nexuses and fast border programs, creating a 50-mile backup of trucks at the Windsor-Detroit border. Canada is praying for a stop because they realize that every day the tariffs stay in place, the closer they get to losing their flag, their currency, and their future. The Bank of Canada is running out of options to defend the loonie, and internal intelligence reports suggest that several western provinces, like Alberta, are already discussing annexation referendums to escape the economic carnage. This is the dismantling of a nation from the inside out, fueled by a 35% tariff and a president who doesn't believe in neighbors-only subsidiaries. The situation on the ground as of the 19th of February 2026 has shifted from a trade dispute to what many are calling a financial decapitation of the Canadian state. The Trump administration has just activated the annexation protocol within the Department of Commerce, a move that hasn't been seen in North American relations for over a century. This protocol officially labels Canada as a non-compliant resource zone, allowing the US to bypass all existing USMCA protections. While the Canadian public is still reeling from the 35% baseline tariff, a second wave of targeted 100% duties has just been slapped on the Canadian energy sector. This is a direct hit to Alberta's oil sands, which account for nearly 10% of Canada's total GDP. By shutting off the pipelines to the American Midwest, Trump isn't just raising prices, he is effectively bankrupting the Canadian provincial governments one by one. As we dig deeper into the data from this morning, the numbers are staggering. The Canadian dollar, or the loonie, has just plummeted to a historic low of 0.58 cents against the greenback. This has triggered a massive capital flight, with over $140 billion leaving Toronto's financial district in just the last 72 hours. Prime Minister Mark Carney held an emergency press conference at 10 a.m. today, calling for national unity, but the streets of Ottawa and Vancouver tell a different story. Protests are breaking out as the cost of imported groceries has spiked by 40% overnight. Canada depends on the US for almost 90% of its winter produce, and with the borders effectively closed to non-essential trade, the shelves are starting to go empty. This is why the Canadian leadership is praying for a stop. They aren't just losing money, they are losing the ability to feed their own people. The real secret, however, lies in a leaked memo from the US National Security Council titled Project Northern Shield. This document outlines a plan to federalize the North American energy grid under exclusive US control. Trump's logic is that Canada's vast freshwater reserves and Arctic minerals are strategic assets that cannot be left to a weakened, sovereign Ottawa. He has reportedly offered a debt-for-land swap, where the US would forgive Canada's massive national debt in exchange for a 9-year lease on the entire Northwest Passage. This is the 51st state theory becoming a terrifying reality. In the corridors of the White House, the conversation is no longer about trade deals. It's about how many stars they might need to add to the flag by the 2028 election. Adding to the fire, the US has officially suspended all intelligence sharing through the Five Eyes alliance with Canada, citing infiltration by foreign interests. This has left the Canadian military completely blind in the Arctic, just as US nuclear submarines are reportedly increasing their patrols in the Beaufort Sea. The pressure is coming from every side: economic, military, and diplomatic. Trump is using a total pressure model that is designed to make the Canadian government collapse from within. If the Liberal NDP coalition in Ottawa falls, Trump has already signaled he will only negotiate with a new pro-integration government. This is a cold-blooded restructuring of a G7 nation, and Canada is realizing that in the 2026 world order, there is no such thing as a friend, there are only competitors and assets. The endgame for Canada as a sovereign nation is no longer a conspiracy theory. It's a legislative reality being debated in Washington right now. As we move into the final hours of the 19th of February 2026, the pressure on Ottawa has reached a breaking point that even the most seasoned diplomats didn't see coming. President Trump has reportedly issued a final ultimatum to Prime Minister Mark Carney. Either Canada agrees to a unified North American security perimeter, which effectively hands over control of all Canadian borders, ports, and airports to US officials, or the 100% nuclear tariff on Canadian energy will stay in place until the Canadian economy completely hollows out. This is a total surrender of sovereignty, and for the first time in history, the Canadian government is facing a situation where they literally cannot afford to say no. The data from the last 24 hours shows exactly why Canada is in such a desperate state. With the loonie crashing to 0.58 cents, the cost of servicing Canada's massive national debt has increased by nearly $40 billion in just 2 months. According to a high-level leak from the Department of Finance in Ottawa, the Canadian government is less than 90 days away from a total liquidity crisis. Trump knows this. He is using the US Treasury as a weapon to force a debt-for-equity swap on a national scale. In this 2026 scenario, the equity isn't a company, it's the land itself. Trump has publicly suggested that the US could forgive Canada's trade deficit in exchange for permanent exclusive rights to the critical minerals in the Ring of Fire region and the untapped oil of the Arctic. But the real shocker for the Geo-Unseen crew is the 51st state roadmap that is being circulated among Republican hardliners in the US Senate. This isn't just talk anymore. The plan involves a phased economic integration where the Canadian dollar is replaced by the US dollar and Canadian provinces are given associate state status. While most Canadians are horrified, recent polling from mid-February 2026 suggests that nearly 20% of the population in Alberta and Saskatchewan provinces hit hardest by the energy tariffs would actually consider joining the US to escape the economic carnage. Trump is successfully using the divide and conquer strategy, pitting the Canadian provinces against each other until the federal government in Ottawa has no power left to exercise. The final fallout for 2026 is clear. Canada is praying for Trump to stop because they are watching the death of their nation in slow motion. If Carney gives in, Canada becomes a client state of Washington. If he refuses, the country faces a depression that could last a generation. If you want to know which country Trump targets next in his America First expansion or how the 51st state map is being drawn, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe Geo Unseen YouTube channel. We are tracking the secrets that the mainstream media is too afraid to report. The map is changing, the pressure is rising, and we'll be here to break it all down. Thanks for watching, stay sharp, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace from Geo Unseen.